Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy B, and today I thought we would have a little bit of an deeper conversation on KvK maps and also show you some feedback from the community on the recent Age of Duality KvK season map and just talk about a couple things and how could we possibly make some improvements and or what could be a better map design, if there even is one out there. All that and more. Stay tuned. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us off, because I've said a lot. Thanks. Okay, so let's just dive right in. The Age of Duality map comes with hurdles. It comes with some roadblocks, some challenges that I don't think the average player, average fighter, was most likely expecting, and or at this point probably looking forward to. Now, why is this? Well, unlike pretty much every single KvK seasonal map before Age of Duality, you did not have to be reliant or dependent from one kingdom to another on being able to engage in a fight within particular zones. And yes, we are talking about portals. This was never an issue in previous KvKs for the most part, a number of reasons. And it could be viewed as good or bad, because in some of the previous KvK maps, you would either have starting zone ones that would be a 1x1x1, right? So it would be every other, or you might have a 2-2-2, you might have a 1-2-1-2, or maybe a 3-3 if it's west versus east, north versus south, northwest versus southeast as an example, just depending on how diplomacy played out and or if there was a team up phase in that KvK season. However, in most cases, you would usually get 1 to 2 zone 2s that would see action. And then the others would either just do some merit trading, maybe you'd have some small mock wars and skirmishes between allies, right? And that's only if that happened. And that was up to, right? And that was at the minimum end. And then, of course, up to every zone 2 seeing action. And then the same thing applying for zone 3. Up until you get to the final zone, which again could make or break. Because before Age of Duality, which is, I believe, the single greatest asset that the season map has going for it right now, despite the Zone 2 and the Zone 3 inefficiencies, is that in Age of Duality, every kingdom has an opportunity to make it to the final zone. You are guaranteed. And this is the first time in CallofDragons history, where you have been able to have a guarantee as such. Meaning that there's no way that someone could block you or stop you or impede on you making it to the final zone. Now, because of how the zone 2s and the zone 3s are set up, which basically is dependent, like I said, if you're an A kingdom, it is dependent on your B kingdom, setting up portals, having shells available, and being able to utilize those so you can either have kind of round-the-clock rotational portals, or if you're just kind of doing the 1x1s, if you want to be able to maybe participate on 2 fronts at the same time, etc. It is a prerequisite in order for you to participate. And that, just in and of itself, can be slow. And that is part of the feedback that some people have said. Others have said just the way that it is when your unit dies or they're being recalled after they go through the portal and they fight, and that process should be a little bit quicker to get back into it. But I actually have a solution on a potentially new map design that is taken from inspiration from a previous map design. We're going to show you that in a little bit here. But let's look at some feedback real quick from the community on how they have viewed this Age of Duality season. So, As we go here, we'll see, right? So here's one comment in regards to age duality. Now, there's a number of them out there, but we just kind of picked a couple here. So this one from Shadow states, when you're in age duality, thinking about going hard in the final zone, then enemy A dips. Now, this is probably in one of the first 10. And this is, again, probably a little bit more of an outlier than anything, because at least the opportunity for them to make it is there. And then our boy Double D says, well, they effed up hard with age duality scenario, hits us with the GG emoji. Okay. This one, a little bit more detailed. So Cryptic says, the new age duality season heavily restricts players' ability to fight. Joker says, it's a very restricting map for the A Kingdoms. A Kingdoms are reliant on B Kingdoms building portals to allow them to teleport in to fight. Otherwise, all the early gates the A Kingdoms have no access to. That's right, because they only have access to Zone 3. And the amount of access they have, I mean, basically everyone can really access it for the most part. And that is because being able to have any of the teams build portals, with the exception of that if you're the A Kingdom, you're now the one having to build portals for the Bs. When you're going into Zone 3, the two Bs that are fighting against the A are able to kind of double up on building portals for their A Kingdom, right? So there's a little bit more ease of that, right? To where you can have kind of an easier of a 1v3 versus, at least initially, right? And then obviously depending on how set up the A Kingdom is to bring in Bs, right? Then obviously there's that opportunity there. But I think that this is pretty spot on. So then we have Joker saying the portals have a limited time active before they can be rebuilt to have a 6-hour cooldown. No portal, no fighting. That's right. When done right, there can be a lot of fighting as you move between two different war zones. But it feels like to get good fighting, you have to navigate through an unnecessarily complex system. It does not feel good to play. And I think this is where we really start getting to the crux of it all, is that it's almost as though they've kind of set up this 3-step process when there used to only be 1 step, which was just capturing the pass and going through it and fighting. But now you got to have a shell to build the portal. You got to bind the portal. Then you have to make sure however many people you have online, if you're going to do any limiting there, or just let anyone go through. And then you're going to have make sure that you take advantage of the time that the portal is going to be active for, right? So there's a window you have to participate within. And then on top of that, probably the most detrimental part is that if you're not able to keep chaining portals from shells, etc., then you have to wait the cooldown period. So there's this kind of like stop and go. It's almost like being in traffic, and it's like they're moving a little bit, you go, but then they full stop, and now you have to stop, and then you have to wait for that. It's so monotonous, right? It is. I think the word unnecessary is probably the best word to use to describe the portal system. Now you can make them. Let's read this last one. So this one's from Slamurai. Age duality, such a gimmick of a season, worst map in season ever. We have, where is it? Someone said agreed. Someone says the dev should just give us a way to create a map and give us an option to vote to see which map everyone likes the most. The map is so shy, is designed by a 2-year-old. I mean, again, it just kind of goes to show you, how some people feel about the season. And like I said, kind of going back to this word unnecessary, I'm all for trial and error, right? This is something I've always been a proponent of, especially if it's on the dev side of them saying, hey, look, we're just going to try this out and see how it plays out, right? Now, do I think that if they made some improvements to Age of Duality, the season could be a lot better? Absolutely. If nothing's changed, do I think that people are going to select this map again? Probably not, to be fair. Now, for me, I think it's easy as if we're just talking about adjustments, right, for the current map. Before I give you guys my solution on a KvK map, is one, I think some people have suggested this before, which is why don't we just make it so the portal lasts forever and until it's destroyed? So there's a no limit cap on the amount of legions that can be sent, and then it lasts forever until it's destroyed. However, if you want to move it, then you have to destroy it and then build a new one, right? So like if you're trying to move it closer to where the action is because you're 15, 20 flags deep and you got some long walks and you want to destroy and then rebuild, okay, that's fine. But you have to eat that cooldown time. Okay, I think that's okay. Other people have said just make it so the troops, return back faster, once they die, so you can kind of get them back into the fight quicker. I mean, for me, I think the portal portion on just having it up all the time, I think would probably solve a lot. Now, I'm sure there's some other ideas out there as one I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments. However, one of the things that I'm not a fan of on the map is the isolation that you have, where you don't really have an opportunity for all of the kingdoms to necessarily engage all at the same time without having to jump through hoops. And I think that there actually is a solution to this. So let me take you to what my solution would be on an idea for a new KvK map, right? And it's actually drawing inspiration from a previous KvK map, but with some changes. So let's take a look real quick and let's go all the way back to SB2. So for those of you that may or may not recall, SB2, which was the Bellerin Season 2 map, it's not even in rotation anymore. What this map, and I'm showing you a picture of Zone 3 because I have to like go really far back to show you like a full zoomed out one. I was trying to find a video before recording this, but again, it was taking me a little bit longer than I had anticipated. So basically the idea for this map is it was like a triangle. So here's your final zone in Karadeg. Here's your western or left zone 3 in Morbrez, and here's your eastern or right zone 3 in Doolin. Now there was this line that basically split the map, right? So imagine triangle, and then there's a line here, and that line represents basically a mountain range with you not being able to get any action in zone 2 or zone 3, for like the western, it basically created like a western half and then an eastern half on this triangle. And this line went right down the middle, separating them. So as an example, if you had your team of kingdoms that was on one side and the other team of kingdoms on the other side, which happened in that infamous TFS version war season that you might hear me reference every so often, the only time you would ever get action is in zone 3 at the level 4 pass here at the statue. And then, of course, once final zone opened. But it created what I thought was a very interesting dynamic, and I felt like there was opportunities to build from this. And so let me take you through. Here's another example, and then here's the Morbrez side a little bit more. Oh, I guess I went too in. There we go. Okay. So let me take you through my idea on a map. So I'm going to take this and we're just going to make, can I like skadoosh this? Here we go. Psh, okay, cool. Is this like viewable-ish to people? And make sure okay, cool. So let's just use this as an example. So here's our map. Utilizing this Bellerin Season 2 formula or format, this is what I propose as an idea for a KvK season map. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a line straight down. However, the difference here is this. So we're going to have, right, let's say this is the west, right? We'll just go like west-east, right? So there's a west region, and let's say there's an east region. Now, you could do this as like a 3v3, a 2v2, a 4v4, whatever it is. However, right, okay, now, and then we need to define like some zones. So let's say like, okay, zone 2, right? Or like, sorry, zone 1, right? Let's go zone 2, zone 3, and then final zone. Okay, so let's go. So we'll do this, right? So we'll go like zone 1, we'll go zone 2, we'll go zone 3, and then we'll just go FZ, final zone, as an example. Now, you could modify. However, this is what needs to happen. Instead of just having statues here, what I propose is you basically have two teams, similar in a sense to kind of how they did Age of Duality, except one team is west, one team is east, where you'd have the 2 or 3 kingdoms on that team get put here, and the other ones get put over here, right? So as an example, let's choose a light color here, and then we'll just do like a little bit of a fill, right? So let's do this, and then we'll go like a light, let's just go orange, right? Keep it simple, okay? So you have 2 teams. except this is the difference. Let me take a circle. So the difference is this, and we'll make this purple, I think. So instead of not seeing any action here, you would put all the kingdoms in the same zone 1 and all the other kingdoms in the same zone 1. And then what you would do is you would let them, wait, hang on, let me make sure I like have this right. Bam. So you would create these pockets. And these would be your PvP zones. And we've talked about this before. Now, yes, some of them might be a little, unevenish. And I guess I didn't really need this line here. Let me, can I erase this line just so there's not a line here? Yeah, right, because it's final zone, so you don't really need that. But, you guys get where I'm going with it. So, yeah. So here, I'll just do that. And here, I'll just fill this with like orange or something. Actually, we can fill this with like the same, right? Because it basically would be, so what? Let's just go like red. Boom, right? Because it's final zone, right? So you're kind of merging at that point. But basically what would happen, right? And then it would be like this. So this would be a PvP zone, right? So there would be, and I'll make this, what color? Should we just make this blue, right? So there would be PvP, okay? So this would be a PvP zone where all the kingdoms would fight each other. And that's it. Now, you could still have statues if you want statues. And I'm totally fine with that. However, I think it would be okay. And you could say like, okay, well, maybe make the statues down here, right? Maybe on one of the edges or something as an example. And you would have it. Now, there would be you could even say that there's passes. You want to make passes here? I'm fine with there being passes, right? Totally okay with that. However, the most important thing here is that you need to open them up in order, right? So you could say like, okay, if you want like a little statue area, say, let's make that green, right? So let's do, where's my circle? So we'd go like this, right? Like you could say your little statue areas here in each one. Okay, totally fine with that, right? And you could even say like the statue can open up first and then the PvP zone would open, right? Like that's how you could do it. And then, right, if you want to have, like, as an example here, if I had to do a pass, what color should we do passes? How about yellow, right? So you could do like a pass here, or sorry, excuse me, it wouldn't be there. It would be like, as an example, right? I mean, you get what I'm saying, right? Obviously, it would look different on the map, but just for like ease of understanding, it would be something like this, right? And then what would happen is, right, and you'd have like 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Maybe you would do the same down there. And basically, what would happen is that you would progress. You'd go into zone 2. So when zone 1's here, you'd have a PvP zone that opens maybe a couple days or within the first week. You can fight for that. There's got to be great rewards there and a reason to go. Then zone 2 opens. Everyone builds in there, right? So all 2, 3, or 4 of the kingdoms on your team build in there, and then you get to fight it out in the zone 2 PvP when that opens. Now maybe the statue opens first, and then it's the PvP zone, and then so on and so forth. And then eventually you get to the final zone, and that opens, and then for example, these passes will open afterwards, right? And that's the main thing here. Is it should be zone 2 opens. Zone 3 opens, the final zone opens, and then you could have these cross passes open that allow for you to go into your opponent's zone 3, eventually going into your opponent's zone 2, and then I'm 50-50 on if you want to be able to go into your opponent's zone 1. But I think if they did a map like this as an example, and they just made it to where it's like a horseshoe, right? A U-turn. So it's like, boom, you get to go all the way, everyone gets to get to the final zone, and then you get to have a certain amount of fighting there, right? Plateauing, and then eventually it curves, and that's where you get these cross zone 3 passes that'll open, and the cross zone 2 passes, and then maybe the cross zone 1 passes. I would almost like to see something like this, because to me, it just makes it so much easier. So I'm curious on what you guys think on this. Let me know your thoughts. Any adjustments, amendments? Is this even a map that you think could work well? Personally, I think this would work great. Personally, if it was me, I think this could be the best KvK map that I have seen so far. And it's taking inspiration from something they've already done, right? But just doing it better, at least in my opinion. However, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.